There's this video that came out a few days ago from Scott Ritter. He's always good for some content, that guy. And what a joker. And I wanted to just play for you. It's so ridiculous what he is saying that I want you to hear the whole thing. This clip is a minute and a half long, but I'm going to have you listen to the entire thing. And you're just going to be shaking your head in disgust. Now, this guy that's interviewing him, I don't really know what his story is, but he's from Iran. So not only does Scott Ritter function as a mouthpiece for the Russian propaganda arm of the Russian government, but he's now doing regular interviews with some Iranian guy about how Israel is losing the war. So check this out. This is so nuts.
The current situation that they're facing right now in the southern part of Lebanon? Are
No,
they do they have upper hand in the southern part of Lebanon on the ground? I'm talking about.
they don't have the upper hand. They're losing. They're failing. It's not possible. Every time they try to push further in, they get beat. They have to withdraw. They lose tanks. They lose manpower. Eventually,
I'm going to stop it right there. And I'm just going to talk about, he's saying that the Israelis are losing in Lebanon, that every time they go in there, they get beat, that they're losing tanks, they're losing men. Here's the thing. Israel is very transparent about their losses. When an Israeli soldier gets killed, they don't hide it. They announce it as soon as they let the family know. Once they've alerted the family, they announce the death and they have a running toll. There's a website out there that you can go and you can see what the current death toll is. It's somewhere around 350 something total since the war began. So that would make about a little over 700 soldiers that have been killed, including the ones who were killed on October 7th. But if you don't include those and just start counting when they invaded Gaza, they're about 350. Now, about 50 of those have been killed in Lebanon in the fighting. So far, the Hezbollah death toll in Lebanon, according to Hezbollah, is about 3,600. So even if we use their numbers, this statement that Ritter is making, that Israel is losing so badly, every time they go into Lebanon, they get beat back and they have to withdraw, and they're losing tanks and they're losing men. There's just no proof of that. There's no videos out there of any tanks being lost in Lebanon. I've only seen one actual tank kill video in the entire war, and that was in Gaza just about 2 weeks ago. You see a lot of videos that come out of a tank being struck with something. So the GoPro video it with Hamas operative or whatever, some dude in civilian clothes carrying an RPG launcher, and he goes, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and then he pulls the trigger, and then you see kaboom on the tank. But they cut the video off right there as soon as it hits. And the reason that those tanks look like such a big ball of flame when the RPG hits is because they have that anti-rocket system on the tanks that has explosives that explode toward the rocket and detonate the rocket before it can hit the tank. And the Hamas videos that they put out of them striking these things never show the aftermath of that explosion. That's because those tanks are not being disabled. They're made to take hits from RPGs. They're made to do that. And like I said, I've only ever seen one video of an actual Merkava tank that got killed in Gaza. And we haven't seen any coming out of Lebanon. There is zero evidence that the Israelis are getting their heads handed to them inside Lebanon.
eventually, sooner rather than later, Koch will have to acknowledge the same realities that Gallant had to deal with, that you're not winning. in southern Lebanon. You're losing that. You're not getting 60,000 people back home. Tens of thousands more are fleeing because of the ongoing, and you can't stop the Hezbollah rockets. That's the reality. Israel can't stop the Hezbollah rockets. And Hezbollah can do this all day, all night, weeks, months, years if necessary.
Now, he's saying that the reason that they're losing is because there are still rockets flying out of Lebanon at Israel. He claims that there are tens of thousands of people that are continuing to flee the north. That's not true. We've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. Again, Ritter has not been to Israel lately, and not at all during this war. So he has no idea. I don't know where. He's just making this stuff up, I think. I've been there. I've been to Haifa. People are still living there. They're going about their business. I don't see people fleeing. We've not heard, there's no evidence of that at all on the ground. And he's saying that Hezbollah is continuing to fire rockets into Israel. That's true. However, what they were saying is that once Israel invaded Lebanon, that Hezbollah would be firing thousands of rockets every day into Israel. And instead of thousands, we're seeing about 100. And they're disjointed, they're not organized, the numbers are declining. And when you look at the actual experts like Sarit Zahavi and what she's saying about what's happening in the north, Hezbollah is being degraded. How can you look at what Israel did with Operation Grim Reaper? Just that one operation. How can you look at that and say that they're losing? They've taken out the entire chain of command of Hezbollah from like captain level up all the way to the top. Here's some video of some of the weapons that they're taking out, and they're finding tunnels, and they're destroying the tunnels. They're destroying the infrastructure left and right in Lebanon. How is that losing? Now he goes on to say that they're losing in Gaza. So let's take a listen to what he says there.
What's going to collapse first, Hezbollah or Israel? And I don't mean that. I'm talking about Israel as a nation state. It's on very thin ice as we speak. Its economy is collapsing irrecoverably.
That's not true. Israel's economy is doing better than the U.S. economy.
Politically, you're looking at near civil war.
There's no civil war conditions in Israel. Anybody who's been to Israel will tell you that they're not looking at civil war
type conditions. Last week, people were talking about a coup, a potential.
There was no talk of a coup except by American media, who also is not in Israel.
Coup. That's the reality. But no one wants to admit the reality in Israel. Israel is a fundamentally defeated state.
Israel is a failed state. I wonder if Ritter has ever been to a failed state. I just came back from Haiti, and Haiti is a failed state. There's no government. There's no law to speak of. It's run by gangs. I've been to Somalia. Somalia is a failed state. There's no police at all. There's just no government. Israel's economy is literally stronger than the U.S. economy right now, even in the midst of the war. It certainly has been costly for Israel, but they're not about to collapse. The government is functioning. The economy is functioning. There are people out shopping on the streets. There are people going about their business, even in the north. So this guy just literally does not have a clue. He's just making stuff up. And let's keep going because it keeps getting better.
But no one wants to admit the reality in Israel. Israel is a fundamentally defeated state. It's a failed state. It's a failing state.
It's a failed state.
And simply repeating the same failed policies of the past isn't a formula for resolving this underlying reality. And the reality is that Israel, if things are left unchanged, Israel will collapse as a modern nation state.
So he says Israel will collapse as a modern nation state. Who is Scott Ritter? Scott Ritter is a former ICC inspector. He really is a former, I don't know, like colonel, I guess, from the U.S. Army. He never really did a whole lot with himself. When the war started in Ukraine, he was just consistently saying, Ukraine is going to lose, Ukraine is going to lose, Ukraine is going to lose. They're losing. He would say the same kinds of things you're hearing him say here at the very beginning of the war. He would say, Ukraine is not going to last another week. In 48 hours, Ukraine will collapse. Ukraine's forces are crumbling. And I remember the day before the Ukrainian army retook the city of Kherson from the Russian forces, Scott Ritter was on TV talking about how in Kherson, in that region, that the Ukrainian forces were crumbling, the entire Ukrainian military was about to collapse, the government was going to flee, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's just been so wrong on everything since I started, hearing him back during the first part of the war in Ukraine, that I just follow the guy out of sheer morbid curiosity to hear what stupid things he's going to say next. And as far as Ukraine goes, he's just one of those guys that I don't know that he's in the pay of Russian propagandists. He may be. They have found that there are some commentators online who have been paid big money to speak out against Ukraine or against Israel, and paid by propaganda arms of either the Iranians or the Russians or the Chinese or whatever. I know that Tim Pool was one of those who got paid like $90,000 an episode or something stupid like that to say the right things by some propaganda arm. And so I don't know if he's getting paid by some propaganda arm to come up with this garbage, but what I wonder is whether he actually believes it or if he's just spouting this stuff because that's what his base wants to hear. Obviously, there is a subculture of people out there who wants to believe that Ukraine is terrible, they're corrupt, and they're going to lose this war and everything like that. But and there's the same subculture of people who are very anti-Semitic, who desperately want Hamas or the Palestinians to win this conflict against Israel. And sometimes those are the same people, and sometimes they're people on different sides of the aisle. This is what has pushed me to really cut ties with every political party, because you've got people on the far, far left who are just rabidly anti-Semitic, that just hate Israel and wish that they would disappear as a country sooner rather than later. And then you have people on the far right who are exactly the same way, that say the same things as the people on the far left. So I'm starting to see that it's not so much of a continuum as it is a big circle. And the further left you go, if you go too far left, you end up on the far right. That's strange to me, but that's just what I have found. And that's one of the reasons that I've just like sworn off the politics of it. And I just try to focus on the morality of it.